Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going on a real detective adventure
Oh,
using fossils as clues
okay.
to solve the mysteries of life's history. And
Oh.
we've got all sorts of cool sources for this.
Yeah.
We've got lecture notes, we've got textbook excerpts all about evolution and paleontology.
Awesome.
And
How,
yeah, think of them as our detective's handbook.
yeah, it's fascinating stuff. These fossils,
Yeah.
they aren't just random rocks, right? They're like
Yeah.
pieces of a puzzle, but like a puzzle that's billions of years in the making.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to use them to like understand how life on Earth has changed over time.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about, small changes over time. We're talking about like
Yeah.
huge events like mass extinctions that just totally reshaped the entire planet.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we jump into all of that, I think it's worth taking a step back and just making sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, good idea. What are
So,
we talking about here?
what exactly are fossils and how do they form?
So fossils, they're essentially preserved remains, impressions or traces of ancient organisms.
Okay.
So, imagine like a prehistoric forest,
Okay.
like trees towering overhead, insects buzzing about.
Yeah, I can see it.
Now imagine that forest slowly being buried under layers of sand and mud.
So like a time capsule almost?
Precisely, yeah, like a time capsule.
Okay.
And over millions of years, those layers harden into sedimentary rock.
Right.
And if conditions are just right, the remains of those trees and insects can be preserved within those layers.
Wow.
And that's how we get petrified wood,
Yeah.
insects trapped in amber, even footprints.
So we're not just talking about bones then?
No, not at all. Fossils can be all sorts of things.
Okay.
I mean, we've even found frozen remains of woolly mammoths.
That's amazing.
It's really incredible what can be preserved over time.
It is, but how do scientists figure out how old these fossils actually are? Because I know that our notes mention something called radiometric dating.
Yeah, radiometric dating, that's like the key
Oh,
to unlocking the timeline of the fossil record. And it relies on the fact that certain elements within rocks and fossils decay at a very predictable rate. But think of it like a clock that's been ticking for millions of years.
so how does that actually tell us the age of a fossil?
So each radioactive element has what we call a half-life. And this is the time it takes for half of the atoms in a sample to decay into a more stable form.
Okay.
And by measuring the ratio of the original element to its decay product, we can actually calculate how long that decay process has been going on.
So it's not just a guessing game.
No, not at all. It's a
Yeah.
very precise method that gives us a numerical age, often in millions or even billions of years.
Wow. And this is how we've been able to construct what we call the geologic timescale, right?
Yeah, the geologic timescale is like a massive calendar that divides Earth's history into eons, eras, and periods.
Right. And I remember seeing a chart in our sources, and it's just mind-boggling to see just how vast geologic time really is. But here's a question that's been bugging me. If not everything fossilizes, doesn't that mean that the fossil record is incomplete?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How can we be sure that we're getting the whole story?
You've hit on a crucial point. The fossil record is undoubtedly incomplete.
Okay,
Organisms with hard parts like shells and bones are much more likely to fossilize.
makes sense.
And certain environments, like those with rapid burial and low oxygen, are more conducive to fossilization than others.
So it's like we're working with a puzzle, but we're missing some pieces.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Okay.
But even with those missing pieces, the fossil record still reveals clear patterns of evolutionary change over time.
Oh, okay.
So we can track the emergence of new groups, the extinction of others, and the gradual shifts in the forms of life over millions upon millions of years.
Okay, that's good. So we've got these fossils, and we can date them, and we can see these broad patterns of change. But how do scientists actually use this information to piece together the evolutionary history of a specific group of animals?
That's where things get really exciting.
Oh, okay.
Let's take the evolution of mammals as an example,
Okay, I'm intrigued why mammals in particular.
because their story is beautifully illustrated in the fossil record.
Okay.
We can trace their lineage back through a series of fascinating transitions, and our sources have some incredible images showing how the skulls and jaws of their ancestors changed over time.
Oh, wow.
It's like watching evolution in action.
I'm looking at them now, and you can actually see how the bones shifted and rearranged as mammals evolved.
Yeah,
It's amazing how much information is packed into a single fossil.
it is. We can see the lineage evolve from early synapsids, which were the ancestors of mammals,
Right.
through therapsids and cynodonts, where we start to see the development of features like differentiated teeth and a more advanced jaw hinge. And these changes paved the way for the incredible diversity of mammals we see today.
It's mind-blowing to think that a tiny shrew-like creature millions of years ago was the ancestor of everything from whales to bats to whelliss.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It all comes down to being able to read those clues in the fossil record.
Right.
But here's the thing. Evolution isn't always a smooth, gradual process.
Whoa.
Sometimes it's punctuated by dramatic events that shake up the whole system.
You're talking about mass extinctions.
Exactly.
Those events where a huge percentage of species just disappear from the fossil record.
Yeah, they're like resetting the evolutionary clock. And
Wow.
what's really interesting is what happens after a mass extinction. But I think that's something we should delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
I am on the edge of my seat. This is like a real-life detective story, only the stakes are like the survival of entire species.
And just like any good detective story, there are twists and turns. So buckle up, because we're about to uncover some of the most dramatic chapters in the history of life.
I can't wait. But before we move on, I want to give our listeners a moment to reflect. Imagine you're holding a fossil in your hand.
All right.
What stories does it whisper to you about the ancient past?
Hmm.
What mysteries does it make you want to solve? We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of the fossil record and uncover even more clues about the incredible journey of life on Earth.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the fossil record. We've been using these ancient clues to piece together the story of life on Earth.
It's an amazing story.
It is, and in part one, we started uncovering some of the dramatic twists and turns in that story.
Right.
Specifically, we touched on mass extinctions.
Yeah, these are events that wipe out huge percentages of species.
It's hard to even imagine.
I know they're like resetting the evolutionary clock, but what's really interesting is what happens after a mass extinction.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how life recovers from something so catastrophic.
It's like starting over, almost right like a forest.
Yeah.
Imagine a forest with lots of different species of trees, all competing for sunlight and resources.
Okay, got it.
Now imagine a massive fire sweeps through the forest.
Okay.
Many of the trees are destroyed,
Right.
but the fire also creates space for new growth.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly, there's more sunlight reaching the forest floor and new opportunities for different types of plants to thrive.
So it's like those plants that were maybe struggling before now have a chance to flourish.
Exactly. That's what happens after a mass extinction. Ecological niches open up,
Okay.
and surviving lineages can evolve and diversify into those open spaces.
So it's not just about bouncing back, it's about branching out in new directions.
Precisely. And a perfect example is the rise of mammals after the extinction of the dinosaurs.
Oh, great.
For millions of years, mammals were relatively small and inconspicuous, living in the shadow of the dinosaurs.
Right, kind of like those plants struggling for sunlight in the crowded forest.
Exactly. But when the dinosaurs were wiped out, mammals suddenly had the opportunity to evolve and diversify into a vast array of forms.
And that diversification ultimately led to us. It's mind-blowing to think that we owe our existence to a mass extinction.
It really shows how these events can completely reshape the trajectory of life.
Wow.
But there's another side to this story.
What's that?
Mass extinctions don't just create opportunities,
Okay.
they also have lasting consequences.
So it's not just a simple reset button then.
Not at all. It can
Yeah.
take millions of years for ecosystems to fully recover from a mass extinction.
Wow.
And the new communities that emerge are often very different from those that existed before.
So even though life bounces back, it's not necessarily a back to normal situation.
Precisely, the loss of biodiversity during a mass extinction can permanently alter the course of evolution. Certain lineages may disappear entirely,
Oh, wow.
while others may be irrevocably changed.
It's like losing a key ingredient in a recipe. You can still make the dish, but it'll never taste quite the same.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a crucial question. Are we in the midst of a sixth mass extinction?
That's a sobering thought, but our sources do point to some worrying trends.
They do. The rate of species extinction today is far higher than the background rate, and many scientists believe human activities are the primary driver.
So we're essentially acting like that forest fire, wiping out species and disrupting ecosystems.
In a way, yes. And if we are indeed in a sixth mass extinction, understanding the long-term consequences of past extinctions becomes even more crucial.
Because if we don't learn from the past, we're doomed to repeat it.
Not necessarily doomed,
Okay.
but the fossil record provides a stark warning about the potential for human activities to drive widespread extinctions and fundamentally alter the course of life on Earth.
So what can we do? How can we apply these lessons from the past to protect the future?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one we'll continue to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, I think it's important to just sit with this knowledge,
Right.
to let it sink in.
To recognize that we're not just observers of this story, we're active participants.
Exactly. And our choices today will have a profound impact on the next chapter of life's journey. So as we move on to part 3, I encourage you to reflect on this. What does it mean to you to be part of this grand evolutionary story?
Yeah.
And what role do you want to play in shaping its future?
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been exploring the fossil record, using it as a guide to understand the epic story of life on Earth.
It's amazing how much it can tell us.
It really is, and we've seen how extinctions can just totally reshape the planet, but also how life finds a way to bounce back,
Right.
even thrive in these new and unexpected ways.
It's a testament to the resilience of life, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, the fossil record, it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Right.
It's also full of these incredible stories of adaptation and innovation.
Yeah, it's like life is constantly experimenting, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So where do we see the best examples of this in the fossil record?
Well, we talked about the rise of mammals after the dinosaurs. That's a classic example of what we call adaptive radiation.
When organisms evolve and diversify to fill new ecological niches.
Right, like those plants taking advantage of the open space after a forest fire.
Exactly.
But how did mammals go from those tiny, shrew-like creatures to the incredible diversity we see today? I mean, whales, bats, primates?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
The fossil record helps us trace those steps. We can see how early mammals developed features like warm-bloodedness, live birth, and specialized teeth.
Okay.
And these adaptations allowed them to thrive in a variety of environments and exploit new food sources.
So it wasn't just about luck, it was about having the right tools for the job.
Exactly. And the fossil record reveals the evolution of those tools.
Okay.
Take teeth, for instance. Early mammals had simple peg-like teeth.
Okay.
But as they diversified, their teeth evolved into a variety of shapes and sizes adapted for different diets. We see shearing teeth for carnivores, grinding teeth for herbivores,
Wow.
even specialized teeth for filter feeding in whales.
So a simple thing like a tooth can tell us so much about an animal's lifestyle and evolutionary history.
Absolutely. And it's not just mammals. The fossil record is full of examples of adaptation across the tree of life.
What about plants? Because I know our notes mention the evolution of plants.
Yeah.
What kind of adaptations did they develop?
So plants, they've faced a huge challenge when they first colonized land. They had to adapt to a completely new environment,
Right.
gravity desiccation and the need for new ways to reproduce.
It's like they were the first astronauts venturing into a completely alien world.
A great analogy.
Yeah.
And the fossil record shows how they did it. We see the evolution of roots to anchor them in the soil vascular systems, to transport water and nutrients, and eventually seeds, which allowed for greater dispersal and resilience.
So those early innovations paved the way for the incredible diversity of plant life we see today. I mean, from towering redwoods to delicate wildflowers,
Yeah.
it all goes back to those pioneering ancestors.
Exactly. And it's not just about conquering new environments. The fossil record also reveals amazing examples of coevolution,
Coevolution.
where two or more species evolve in response to each other.
Like an evolutionary dance.
Precisely, think of flowering plants and their pollinators.
Yeah.
Over millions of years, flowers evolved elaborate shapes, colors, and scents to attract specific pollinators.
Oh, wow.
While those pollinators, in turn, adapted to the specific morphology of the flowers they visited.
So it's like a mutualistic relationship where both species benefit.
Exactly, and it's led to some of the most beautiful and intricate relationships in nature. Think of the delicate dance between a hummingbird and a fuchsia flower, or the symbiotic partnership between a bee and an orchid.
It's a reminder that evolution isn't just about competition, it's also about cooperation and this intricate web of life that connects all living things.
Well said, and I think that brings us to a key takeaway from our deep dive into the fossil record.
What's that?
It's a testament to the power of life to adapt, innovate, and diversify in the face of challenges. It shows us that evolution is a continuous process, always shaping and reshaping the tapestry of life on Earth.
And it underscores the interconnectedness of all living things. We're all part of this grand evolutionary story. A story that began billions of years ago and continues to unfold today.
Absolutely. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From the formation of fossils to the grand narratives of extinction, adaptation, and coevolution.
It's been quite a journey through time.
It has.
But more importantly, it's a journey that helps us understand our place in the world and the role we play in shaping the future of life on this planet.
So as we wrap up, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the wonders of the natural world.
And remember, the fossil record isn't just a collection of old bones and shells. It's a window into the past, a guide for the present, and a source of inspiration for the future.
Until next time, happy fossil hunting.